Okay, I would like to welcome everyone to the Wednesday, June 12th, 2019 meeting of the CCWD Board of Directors. Would you all rise with me and let's do the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Rebecca, would you please call the roll?
Director Underhill?
Yes.
Director Ryder?
Yes.
Director Davidson?
Here.
Director Sicknick? Here. President Thomas?
I am here. Okay, on the next agenda item is public comment. At this time, members of the public may address the board on any non-agendized item. The public is encouraged to work through the staff to place items on the agenda for board consideration. No action can be taken on any matters that are not listed on the agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to make a comment on something that's not on the agenda? Okay, moving on. We have the next item is the consent agenda. These items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. The items will be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any member may request that any item be removed for later discussion.
Move for acceptance.
Oh, I'd like to pull, I just have some questions.
Okay, we're pulling item 3E for later consideration. I do want to make an observation that the item 3A is listed as the minutes of May 15th and 29th. It's the
3E.
I know. But on 3A, there's a correction that should be made to the minutes. We're not reviewing the May 29th minutes, we're the 21st.
Could I pull 3D, please?
Can I amend my motion to approve 3A as amended, 3B, 3C, and 3F? Second.
Okay, would you please, we have a motion and a second, would you please poll the board on that?
Yes. Director Underhill?
Yes.
Director Ryder?
Yes.
Director Davidson?
Yes.
Director Sicknick?
Yes.
President Thomas?
Yes. Okay, so the first one that we pulled was 3D.
D, okay. And I just want to do some, a little bit of house cleaning. I would like to see what we have done in the past, so we could get a trend for how, I realize that, situations come up and I've asked for this before so that we could see how we're trending or.
Certainly, and we can go ahead and in future staff reports, I can provide a chart that shows that. I do have the numbers here.
Yeah.
I mean, in comparison to previous years?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Actually, when you compare this to December of May of 2018, we are higher from 16,000 to this 23,000. However, it is lower by about 5,000 from June to November. June 2018 through November 2018. So it dropped this last 6 months. It does go up and down.
Fluctuated, I just.
Right. So we've had a high of 32,000 and a low of 16,000 over the last 2 years.
So we're right in the middle.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
Since we're discussing this, looking at some of these items, my attention is drawn down to here of the $2,466 item near the bottom of the page. The post date is 5/21. That's fairly recently. That's an indebtedness that occurred over the recent past, or?
Yes, that's several. It's when we wrote it off.
Okay.
And we send it to collections. So it's a cumulative amount.
All right.
Not just one individual bill.
Okay, so you just said that we've written it off, but we sent it to collections, so there's a possibility that we might get a percentage of that in the future?
Correct.
Yeah, we get,
But
what,
by
five?
accounting standards, we have to write it off once it goes to collections.
Okay.
And then anything coming back is accounted for as revenues.
Okay. All right.
Move acceptance 3D.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Would you please poll the board on this item?
Director Underhill?
Yes.
Director Radaman?
Yes.
Director Davidson?
Yes.
Director Sikkema? Yes. President Thomas?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 3E.
I'm just wondering, has other employees been on the board for Aqua before, that a regular routine, and then the other question is how much time will be taken away from your duties as general manager to be on this board?
I'm not aware of any other CCWD employees that have been on that board or applied for it. I've been on the board for the last, I think, 4 years, maybe not that long. I filled a vacancy initially, and then I was renominated when I came to CCWD, and then this will be the third time. But it's not a huge time commitment. And it's really, for me, it's really valuable. A really valuable activity. It's mostly GMs that are on that board, and it's become sort of a roundtable of Mountain County Water Agency GMs. A lot of information sharing that goes on. So it's been a really valuable experience for me. So I'd like to continue to do it
How often do you guys meet?
quarterly.
Quarterly. So it's
We meet quarterly, and then there's once a year we'll host an event. Last year we hosted an event at Pardee that focused on forest management and wildfire mitigation.
Well, and two of those meetings are at the Aqua Water.
Yes.
The Aqua Water Conference anyway, that you're already going to be there. Wah, 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 wah.
So there's a meeting at the Spring Aqua Conference and a meeting at the Fall Aqua Conference, and then 2 other quarterly meetings that we usually do either at PCWA or one of the agencies that's on that board.
Are you required to be at any other type of events that might do other than meetings in this one area?
For the Region 3 board. So I have a list of aqua activities. I'm also on the State Legislative Committee, the Federal Affairs Committee, and the Energy Committee. And then the Region 3 board is specific to this, one of the 10 regions within aqua. So Region 3 is mostly mountain counties.
And we've had directors sitting on that board in the past as well.
There is a generally observed rule that you can't have 2 members from the same agency on the board of the region board.
Right.
I had, if you may recall, when I submitted an application to be on the Region 3 board, but Michael pulled rank on me and I had to withdraw my application.
you have that all wrong.
No, in all honesty, it was a better choice to have Michael be the representative, and I think that I can support this easily.
Yeah.
So,
I
And
make a motion that we approve 3E.
Awesome.
okay, we have a motion and a second. Please poll the board.
Director Underhill?
yes.
Director Radaman?
Yes.
Director Davidson?
Yes.
Director Sikkema?
Yes.
President
Thank you.
Thomas?
Yes.
Thank you for your support.
Okay, moving on to item 4. This is a public hearing portion of the meeting. We have annual standby assessment fees as presented by Jeff Meyer.
We have to do these one at a time?
I'm going to explain them, but
No,
yes?
no, I'm saying
Yes,
to-
yes, we have.
to vote
Yeah.
on-
Unified motion for all of them.
Say it
Really?
again.
You could do one unified motion for all of them.
Is that new? Is that new? We've never done that.
We did it last time.
Yes. I think at your suggestion, we did it last time, and it's much more efficient.
Okay, good.
The board met, Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the board. This is an annual process we go through to adopt the annual standby assessments for Indian Rock Vineyards, West Point, Ebbets Pass, Jenny Lind, Copper Cove, and Saddle Creek service areas. These are standby fees that are part of our budget, and in summary, because some of these date back to the early 90s, standby fees that have been in place, and this is just kind of like a continuing resolution. We don't increase them, they stay at the same level, and it requires board action each year prior to the end of the fiscal year. So they're in place before we begin July 1. We have the Indian Rock Vineyard subdivision. It's $10 per month. West Point Improvement District 3, $10 per year. Ebbets Pass Improvement District 5, $10 per year. Jenny Lind Improvement District 6, $10 per year. Copper Cove Improvement District 7, $10 per year. Saddle Creek Subdivision, $10 per year. Copper Cove La Cantera Improvement District 8S, $10 per year. Now, there's different details about each particular service area, whether it's for all individual lots or just those with improvements, or unimproved lots with a building of less than $5,000 in value. I can go through each and every one of them if you'd like, but at this particular point in time, my recommendation is your board adopt the resolutions beginning 2019-36 for those mentioned in the staff report.
Well, I move for acceptance to approve the standby assessment fees for fiscal year 2019, 2020, to include the numbers 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, and 41.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Would you please poll the board?
Is there?
I have
Oh, yeah,
comment.
training wheels again. At this time, I'd like to ask if there's any public comment on this item.
What about the board? I have a comment or a
Would
question.
you like to make a comment?
I'd like to ask a question.
Please do.
Yes.
Okay, so you're saying that it's lots or property in each one of these
Yes.
standbys? Okay.
And I can go by each one if you'd like, or you just have a question.
No, this is just a general question. Okay, so we have one for Ebbets Pass Improvement District 5.
Yes.
That is awfully large.
It's a large area, yes, area.
Yes, so that, how do we determine when we're going to draw money out of the standby fee when they want to, get water? Is it-
Actually, for the Ebbets Pass, this applies to each parcel within the Improvement District 5 to which water is available. So regardless, you pay. And this is even for those that do not have water.
Okay,
I think she's asking,
No.
where does that budget money go to?
Is that what you wonder what the funds are used for? Okay, this is to finance capital costs or maintenance expenses for water. That's the original language that was built into the original resolution to establish this. So that means these dollars are basically going into our operating fund to pay for maintenance of facilities in that area.
in Improvement District 5.
We don't separate them out as per se, it's grouped together, but it helps fund those services for all the work done up there.
Okay, so that as soon as the work needs to be done, we can go to these standby fees.
They're pooled with other funds. So it goes to,
They're part of our regular budget. We
It-
spend
yes.
it every year, right?
we do.
There is no pot of money. It's-
No, for each
it's-
improvement district, there is not any pot of money.
Okay,
But it goes in this case, it goes into the water fund, Fund 300, which we talked about, and those that go into the sewer fund for sewer, it goes into Fund 500. And that's how we allocate, make sure the costs go to the different types of improvement districts.
okay.
It was originally, wasn't it just it was a funding source to be able to keep the system when there wasn't enough population in an area. It was just a revenue source to keep the operational when there weren't enough connections to sustain the facilities.
Exactly.
Okay, so once a property pays the fee for their meter and their capacity fees and stuff, then that parcel no longer has to contribute this $10 a year?
It all depends on the establishing resolution. In this particular case, it's all parcels within ID 5.
Okay, whether they have a meter or not?
Correct.
Okay.
So it's a,
And each one's a little bit different.
So you're saying that somebody already has service with us, they're using their water, they're still paying that $10?
That is correct.
It's not.
It's all the standard.
It's
$10 a year. And
$10 a
it applies
year.
to
Oh, yeah.
A
all
year.
parcels,
Yeah.
even if they're not within our service area.
got it? Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay. No public comment? Any other board comments? Okay, would you please poll the board on this item?
Director Underhill?
Yes.
Director Radaman?
Yes?
Director Davidson?
Yes.
Director Cicada?
Yes.
President Thomas?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, item 5, new business, discussion and action regarding consideration of construction contract for the Techite pipeline replacement project.
Good afternoon. So I'm here to present this item on the construction bids for the construction contract for the Ebbets Pass Techite pipeline replacement project. And just to give a summary, this project's been around on the books for a while. It's up in the Ebbets Pass system in the Big Trees Village subdivision, primarily on Miko Drive. There's also, I think it's Blackfoot Circle is another portion of that pipeline that's highlighted, the dashed line there is highlighted. So the replacement project, it's about 7,000 feet of 10-inch line. There was going to be 8-inch of temporary piping, above ground piping, due to the extensive amount of rock in that area. There was a pretty decent geotechnical report done to evaluate the rock conditions. The project also had included a PRV station, 80 new water services, 6 new fire hydrants, 4 air valves, and quite a number of 10 and 6-inch gate valves. So we went out to bid, I believe it was in May, and these are the bid tabulations here. So the low bid came in at $2,260,000, which, you know, the engineer's estimate was about 1.6 million, so. So they're pretty, you know, I don't.
Blew the lid off that.
Yeah, yeah. So the bidding environment's pretty tough right now, so we're proposing that we, the recommendations are that we reject all the bids. There was I got some feedback from, you know, at least one of the contractors, you know, with some recommendations on maybe how to simplify the project. They thought it was, with this above ground piping, it was a lot of steps involved in having to transfer all the services over and then retransfer them back. So they, you know, there could be an opportunity to look at the geotechnical conditions again and possibly split off half of that project to do a parallel trench versus removing and replace, and, you know, making some other simplifications of the project to bring that cost down some. So, so then we would revise the project drawings and then probably bring it back out to rebid in around October this year, later this year. So just seeking any comments and recommendations from the board.
This is just an informational item then?
Correct.
Well, we're going through the summer months now, so we shouldn't see any major breaks. Usually when the breaks happen, it's in the middle of winter, and the pipe goes, so we can take time to do that. It's interesting, well, I guess the
Action would be to reject.
construction companies wouldn't have any any other ideas about how to make it easier or,
Oh, yeah, and I've been talking to one of the bidders, and they said they were gonna sit down internally and provide me with some written comments back on, you know,
About how you could modify it.
their suggestions. And we're also working with, you know, Coleman Engineers, so we have a consultant as well, so between the consultant, myself, and some feedback from and, you know, maybe since I'm getting comments from one of the contractors, maybe it'd be a good idea to contact the others and see if they had any other recommendations.
because it's only been, to my knowledge, or since I've been around, 17 years that we've been looking at this tech-eyed pipe replacement.
Right, it was installed in the 1980s, and it's been a problem ever since.
I'm sure you'll be examining all parts of it.
We'll get it done.
Yeah, okay.
So there's no action requested of the board at this time. We wanted to provide an update, provide the information. The board, if the board wanted to go with the lowest bid that we have on the table right now, we could bring it back. We could bring the contract back for approval. But at this point, the staff recommendation was that we revisit the design and see if we can pare down the cost of the project a little bit.
Yes.
Was there a consultant that helped us get to this 1.6 million estimate?
I would say no. You know, I think I'm responsible for that, you know, so, I think, you know, I just have to sharpen my pencil a little bit more on some of these. I mean, you know, I have gotten feedback from USDA that, you know, earlier this year, a lot of the bids were coming back high like this. So, and I've heard other agencies are seeing the same kind of bidding environment. So, you know, it could just be that, you know, the economy started to get a little bit better, and contractors had to start at some point, you know, bringing their prices up. So.
Well, seems like you get 1.5 miles of pipeline replaced for 1.6 million, I mean, just intuitively, but anyway, if we truly don't have to do anything other than just listen to what he's saying, and
That's fine.
that's fine.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, but that rejecting these bids requires a motion to reject it, doesn't it?
No.
Okay,
Yeah, we haven't done that in the past that I recall.
all right. Well, thank you for that uplifting message, so.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Well,
Thank you.
Charles, this will be brought back when? What's the timing of sending it back out, redesigning the project, sending it back out? When will you bring this back to us? Because this is something that's been on, a
Yeah.
project,
Yeah,
the
so-
CIP project has been around,
Right,
hanging around for a long time.
we will bid it, put it back out for bid before the end of the year, hopefully around October, before the holidays. That'll give us plenty of time to bring it to the board over November, December, award it, and then get into construction next season,
Spring.
2020. Spring of 2020.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. All right, going on to item 5B, we have a discussion and action regarding approving a sewer system management plan. So,
Good afternoon, everybody. President Thomas, directors. We have Chantel Garvin and Jennifer Lau Larson here from Kennedy Jinks Consultants. They're the folks that worked on the update and the audit of our sanitary sewer management plan. The update is a requirement every 5 years, and the audit's a 2-year requirement. So their work effort fulfilled the requirement, and they're going to give us a presentation on their work effort with staff's overall recommendation is that the board move forward with approving a resolution that accepts the update and the audit. So without further ado, I'm going to bring them up and they can give us a presentation. Oh, Bob, you want to add something?
Yes, if I may. In preparing their presentation, I wasn't certain about the time you wanted to consider this agenda item. So quite to their surprise this morning, I shortened their presentation slides to a shorter presentation, and therefore I would offer you an option if you would like to have just a presentation that highlights the recommendations that were made for improvement to the SSMP that we did in 2019 and the results of the audit, rather than kind of a more broader overview, which I'm happy to go either way. But I knew you had a budget meeting this morning, and there are some other items on this agenda today that might be more time consuming.
I think the briefer is better.
Briefers, just identifying the changes.
And then the last surprise is I surprised them at noon today when they showed up with, hello, these are your new slides. So just to bear in mind that they just got bushwhacked with a change in the plan. This would be, yeah, lighter. I tried to make the colors lighter too, so that was.
In this draft copy that we have in our package,
That's
are
the
the
one.
items in blue, the ones that have had changes done to that section?
Yeah, blue, I actually don't have it printed out.
I think it's just the headings.
Is it just the heading, so there's no red line and everything? It's just the headings.
Blue are actually the headings themselves.
So there's no red line in this one?
Well, this will move you forward backward.
This, Cindy,
Yeah, these have red lines in them. We'll wait for this.
There were.
So are you saying that all there's no changes to this?
There have been changes to the SSMP. I think that it was included in your packet, the updated version.
What I was looking for to see if there's any red lines, so we can just go right to what the change was. Is that something maybe we can get, or do you want this approved today? I guess we want it approved today.
It's available, but
We can certainly discuss whatever the changes are.
Just go on with the changes.
This was a good 6-month process, so ultimately, I don't believe there's an original document that we can provide the original document and the final document, but they are fundamentally changed in format enough and structure that it would be difficult from a strikeout bold format that you would see in a Microsoft Word to allow you to, well, it would be a torturous exercise to figure out what, most of it would appear as a change.
Proceed.
okay, right. So good afternoon. Like you said, these are kind of new slides that we'll be figuring out together. I think Jennifer's gonna kick us off here.
Hi. So, just a short introduction. Chantel Garvin was project manager and project engineer of the SSMP update.
excuse me, if you guys step up to that microphone, then the camera or we'll pick you up. Whoever's speaking should be talking into the microphone, yeah.
Yeah,
That's-
great, thanks.
And then the internet can see you also. I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's okay. So Chantel is the project engineer and project manager. I did QA/QC review of all submittals of the plan. Chantel, though, however, worked very closely with your staff to make sure that these recommendations reflect the district's needs for your SSMP and for your sanitary sewer system. The background of the SSMP, like Damien said, was it is required by the state law to be updated every 5 years, and the audit is required every 2 years. The difference between the update is that it's updating the procedures and methods of the district in maintenance of the sanitary sewer system, and then the audit just evaluates those procedures and methods. Let's see, the board initially adopted the SSMP in 2010 So we're a little bit ahead with this update. Oh, and sorry, there was an update in 2015, so we're a little bit ahead with this one. This SSMP update looked at reviewing and updating your procedures and methods to prevent and reduce sanitary sewer overflows, or SSOs, as well as an update of the emergency overflow response plan, including chain of communication, phone number updates, stuff like that. The audit of the SSMP included activities and procedures for the last 2 years, looking at actual SSO data. And then finally, from the audit and the review of the 2015 SSMP, KJ and your staff developed recommendations to improve procedures and methods. The SSMP is organized according to the requirements of your waste discharge requirements. So all these sections are in your SSMP, as well as 10 recommendations. Your first recommendation is from the organization section, which talks about just how is the district organized, what staff maintains what sections of the collection system or the water treatment plant. So the first recommendation is to actually establish a formal procedure for your customer service representatives to collect data from the public calling in about complaints and guiding them through the process of how maybe an SSO will be addressed or close out of the problem. The legal authority section had 2 recommendations related to just reviewing your rules, regulations, and ordinances in accordance with these, and just to make sure that the district is staying in compliance with state requirements. Chantal?
Thank you. Okay, so this section is the operation and maintenance section. It describes how the operations department maintains the system. So the district is currently in the process of implementing a GIS-based system maps, which will help with the implementation of a computerized maintenance management system. So the district is in the process of reviewing different vendors for that. And with the ultimate goal being to have one system for planning, mapping, and maintenance. So this will allow the district to collect data and analyze data much more efficiently and effectively. Also in the operations and maintenance section is for CCTV. So the district CCTV is its line as a part of its regular maintenance, preventative maintenance program. What we found is that there's not an indexing system. So if we wanted to access a certain street at a certain year, we'd have a hard time doing that at this point. So developing an indexing system as well as a rating system. So if we wanted to look at all of our pipelines that were maybe a grade D or scored lower, and we wanted to collect all that data and develop a pipeline replacement program, it would be difficult to do. So we have a lot of data. It's just a matter of organizing it and being able to analyze it. So that leads into the next recommendation, which is maintenance scheduling. So by having this data that's accessible and analyzable, which is all really tied into the CMMS, we'd be able to more appropriately schedule our pipeline replacement programs and even our preventative maintenance programs. So that maybe additionally in this scheduling program, maybe you would decide to have like a representative sample of one whole subdivision. So just looking at the system as a whole and figuring out how we can better manage it and schedule our improvements and maintenance. Also in preventative maintenance was manhole inspection program. So currently you guys have a program for inspecting lift stations and pipelines on a regular basis, but the district is in the process of developing a manhole inspection program as well. purchase of flow monitoring and additional smoke testing equipment. So some of your guys' greater numbers of overflows have coincided with really wet years. So we know that I&I has been identified as a potential problem. You guys have purchased some smoke testing equipment. You're looking at purchasing additional smoke testing equipment, as well as flow monitoring equipment that is portable and you can move around it and isolate those areas of high I&I. Inventory management program, so you guys have a lot of equipment and parts in case of an emergency. You have emergency generators and pumper trucks and a lot of spare fittings and pipes and pumps, but we don't have a really good record of what exactly you have, and if we use it, how to replace it, where it's at. So one system to, again, organize that data and be able to access what you have when you need it and to replace it when you need it. Okay, so this design and performance provision. So this section will describe how your engineering department manages the sewer system. You guys have a set of design standards and specifications that haven't been updated in quite a while. So just looking through them, reviewing them, and updating them where appropriate is our recommendation. And also, we did hear from the operations staff that they've been asked for septic tank design standard. So we also recommend that as part of this update that you include a septic tank design.
What's the issue with septic tank design? I mean, we have so few.
I believe our standards do not have any requirements related to what is the minimum quality of materials for those septic tanks, and we do have them. In fact, there's 600 within the
600.
I think some 600 in our service area, and with the case of Indian Rock, there are step systems, so each residential house has a sewer system, sewer tank at least, not a leach field. There is apparently a disconnect, as is indicated by operations and collection staff, that our standards are, and our inspector.
Don't we install all those?
To my knowledge, yes, but there might be some that were not installed by us. Do you know? I know Southworth were all installed by the district.
Yeah, that one, that's a new one to me. For the septic tanks that are up off of the pass, Millwoods and that area, my thought would be that they would have been accepted by inspector for CCWD, but I'm not sure as to the answer to that. But
It might be interesting to add that on an engineering committee, just to update us on what the progress is on that.
yeah, that's,
If you don't mind doing that.
yeah, no, absolutely. If I could just add, I think the standards though will help us to set the stage moving forward so we have something standardized, because, the word from our crews is they're constantly running into things that are slightly different, or they have to somewhat relearn the way this tank's operating on the wet side and the dry, or on the solid side and the liquid side. And so something that's more that they have had a stake in and more standardized would benefit the district.
And our inspector would like to have something to reference if they inspect.
Sure. Yeah, because I would assume we don't want to necessarily be installing these, but we want to make sure that they're all acceptable to us.
Exactly, right.
So next is our system evaluation and capacity assurance section. Currently, the district has a 5-year CIP. They update it every year, and that's that's influenced by your master plans and your sewer modeling. Again, it brings up the fact that integrating into a GIS and a CMMS system, and eventually a sewer model for all of your service areas would greatly improve our understanding of capacity in the system. Monitoring, measurement, and modification.
Again, these are not their slides, I just took the recommendations. jammed it in there, so this is why you're literally having to read it as a CA.
So this section was.
But this
the
PowerPoint was put together real nice, too.
Yes, except for it doesn't come out on the display right. For some reason,
Okay.
there's a problem with the Microsoft versions that we're having, so that was going to be an interesting one.
So this requirement of the SSMP is actually the newest requirement by the state. It basically outlines how the district needs to report and record all the data and information that's gathered about the sanitary sewer system. But the only recommendations that came out of this section were to, one, create a consider creating a compliance manager.
Yeah, that's right.
And evaluate the benefits of having someone who can keep on top of all the changing state regulations just different requirements. And then the second recommendation is just to perform regular collection staff workload evaluations, just see, are there any problem areas that maybe it's just popping up, but you can't get staff over there because they're working on some other problems.
So 2019 audit results, so you can see that we tracked SSOs. We actually tracked them a little bit further back, I think to 2008 or so. So we tracked we tracked SSOs by, I don't see it on there, by cause, we tracked it by volume, we tracked it by category. I think overall for the size of your guys' system, they're very minimal amount of SSOs. I don't see any overwhelming one cause that caused everything. I do see a slight correlation between, like I said earlier, wet years and more frequent SSOs. So, but the district is looking into I&I detection equipment, so that's being taken care of. And so I want to give a special thanks to Damon Wyckoff, Bob Godwin, Jesse Hampton, Chris Scravina, and Amos Roeder for all their help in accomplishing this update. And if you guys have any questions.
So the SSMP we had at in 2015, that's kind of gone away, being replaced with this. And so you did an audit of that 2015. And from that audit, created this new one, and this is what you're asking us to do. And Damon, you've gone through this and you're good with everything?
Yes, yeah.
And the recommendations you just went through, are those recommendations for the most part already applied here, and there's certain ones we have to do? Or have you got a compliance manager yet, that type of thing?
Yeah, so the recommendations, particularly with the compliance manager and the manhole inspection worksheet and the septic tank specification, standardization, those have not yet occurred. And so what we can do now is we'll move forward with the collections system supervisor, and he and I will work together to develop the manhole inspection worksheet. And the thought is that we can incorporate that into CMMS, and then we can actually bring those manholes into the asset group of CMMS. So if you can imagine, all of those manholes ultimately will be incorporated into that, and then we'll have a work order that will automatically spit out when that manhole needs to be inspected. And that's, the hope is that helps us to kind of corral the inspection work effort.
Perfect. And so this is going to be your guide, and so when
Right.
we do the next audit in 2 years, you will probably already have in place, we've got the compliance manager and all this inspection.
Yep.
Yeah.
To the extent we can, absolutely. Yep.
In the beginning of the presentation, there was reference to a lot of inventory that you hadn't taken or you didn't know where it was, and I'm just wondering if that could be part of the purchasing agent's responsibility?
Yeah, I think
Does that make
that's a
sense?
good point you make. And one of the things to note is that the collections crew currently doesn't have a place, for lack of a better term, a place to live for their equipment. So they keep it housed at the Jenny Lynn Training Center next to the Jenny Lynn Water Treatment Facility. And so contained in the, excuse me, capital outlay component of the current proposed budget is a building or a structure for the collections crew to house that equipment. And that, the SSMP was speaking to that effect, that, this will help it kind of improve and streamline the work effort if everybody knows where all the material and equipment are. Yep.
Now, did I see a reference, okay, you're talking about a manhole inspection, you have to establish that, but did I see another reference to not having a system for a regular PM?
So currently, the collections crew keeps their own preventative maintenance schedule and their plan of action, so to speak, for cameraing and TVing and inspecting on an Outlook calendar. And so moving forward, and I think this is where you're getting at, the recommendation is to incorporate all of those objectives and a preventative maintenance schedule into CMMS. And one of the benefits for that is that we can all then see it. It's not a contained Outlook calendar, strictly under the review of collections. Right now, I ask for that calendar, and I see it when I ask for it. I just can't passively log in and take a look. And CMMS will actually allow us to see that and then create reports as a result.
From the engineering department side, we would like as much of this information to be available through a format that is compatible with the efforts that Sam is doing on the GIS, because honestly, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and I'd like to know where our maintenance activities are geographically in relationship to our overflows, if any, and the age of the infrastructure there, so that, quite honestly, for you, it's a lot easier to say, well, this money is being spent, for us, to you, that your money is being spent in the most effective manner possible. All that information currently exists, but there's such a disconnect, it's very troublesome and time consuming to correlate all that information.
Yeah, and if I could add on a little bit, is there is a schedule, every 5 years we'll CCTV the whole pipeline system. But what we would like is more of a prioritized schedule to know, what pipelines are failing more often, or what pipelines need to be cleaned more often, which pipelines have more fog issues, so that we can prioritize that schedule and not waste any time.
Did we at any point address arcing? Remember, we had a... Was
Are you
there a-
referring to Arc Flash?
arc.
Not in this, right. This is just for collections, although, I mean, if we were to undertake an Arc Flash study, then some of the collections facilities would be included in
Yeah, I thought that was
Absolutely.
where it was. Oh, my
And yeah,
mistake.
in the cans for the wastewater, I mean, for lift stations.
Those facilities would certainly be included in an Arc Flash assessment, yes.
Okay.
There's one other final one that I brought to the table when they were doing the SSNP update, is that the district has a number of rules and regulations and ordinances, both for water and wastewater, predominantly water. The most significant ordinance affecting wastewater was written in 1984 and has not been updated since then. I'm aware of a number of updates that were proposed by Larry Diamond that were never implemented, and the document is a little arcane in its language. It even refers to the now state and regional boards as the Water Pollution Control Board, which they have not used that name since the early 80s. It would not be undue for us to, and I know it's a formidable effort for the GM and the board to take an ordinance and propose replacing it with a new one, but I'm pretty sure that our prohibitions that we list for discharges are not up to date versus what was written in 1984. That the prohibition list that state wants on that list is more extensive than what we have right now.
And I want to thank Bob for volunteering to undertake that effort.
Coincidentally, I've already done it for you.
Can we see that on June 26th, Bob?
Well, what I've done is as an initial start, that has already been, also the advantage would be is that our ordinances would be electronic, so that you could have Joel post our ordinances, which is essentially our contract with our customers. If you were to ask what our ordinance says now, it took me even some time to, find where it is this the newest one, and what does it say? So as a very beginning start,
Wow.
I scanned in the old 84 ordinance and reformatted it all and, word-proofed it so that this could be the initial template. It is actually, it's dark.
Impressive. You really didn't want, you didn't really want to see it today, did you?
That brings us up to the technology of the early 90s at least.
I had one
Is that question, is that word sewering?
That's the other one, it's called sewering. I've never heard that vocabulary used. There's something like 4 types of laterals to describe. There's a side street lateral, and I'm like, we only care about the private lateral and our public lateral that we are.
I got a
Sewering.
Oh, and by the way, there's several positions that don't exist here. There's superintendent and this.
Okay,
I have
Director Davidson wants to,
going through the list here, system evaluation and capacity assurance plan. Could you kind of just go over that? I mean, I think we didn't talk about it in this presentation, but certainly of importance to me.
Yeah, so I just mentioned in the presentation about master plans and about water models, but I know that in your standards, you also have the option to require developers to submit an engineering report that there is available capacity, so I know
For
that's.
water?
For sewer, for wastewater.
We do?
We have, I think that's one of the issues right now about Oak Creek Phase 3 is the requirement that they evaluate our collection system from their development to our.
Well, we got to have a long talk about that because, that Gold Creek and, and the whole area over there is an assessment district that we obligated ourselves to serve. So, I'd like to know more about this. We don't have to discuss it right now, but I just don't, I just saw how we handle this. And I think we're taking it a little bit too lightly and pushing the burden away, particularly when we've, in an assessment district where we've committed ourselves to serve 1,000 units. So, I guess you know where I stand on this.
That's an authority issue and it will require some additional discussion. I know Charles's position, is that obviously in connecting to our system, we as a district should exercise at least some judgment as to the location where that connection is rather than just them saying, no, we're so
Well, God, what I'm looking at is a system evaluation and capacity assurance. I mean, I guess I don't know exactly what it means, but I think we should know what the capacity of our facilities are and what the limiting factors are. We just did master plans in every one of these, or almost all of them, those facilities, and so we should know.
I think we're talking about 2 slightly different things. So on one hand, an impact analysis of the existing collection system over there isn't necessarily limited to capacity. That's
So this
one
is just a
aspect of it.
collection system.
This is
not-
only collection system, 100% collection.
a document.
Okay, now I understand better, because
So it's not that, it's just a question is this.
collection system is just a part of the overall capacity. I understand. Okay.
But I think to the broader point, the question of when are our facilities, whether it's collection or distribution or treatment plants, when are they up against capacity limitations, and have we planned adequately to expand those systems in time to allow for additional development? That's something we need to have a handle on. And
Well,
need to be
if we can
prepared
get the
for.
general plan ever completed, then we can actually take a look at where.
Yeah, that's part of it, but we also need to make sure we're doing our work in terms of planning for future development and make sure that adequate capacity is going to be available. I would never want CCWD to be in the position of holding up development because we hadn't expanded capacity in time.
I agree.
And just one quick comment is that, from my experience, having a functioning sewer model is like eye-opening. It's like, everything about capacity.
Yeah.
So I know it's a big undertaking, but I mean, it's like you have the whole picture.
Yeah, okay, great, thank you.
I'd like to make a motion approving the sewer system management plan update.
Second?
okay, we have a motion and a second by Director Underhill. Any further discussion? Any public comments? Okay, would you please poll the board on this?
Director Underhill?
Yes.
Director Rademacher?
Yes.
Director Davidson?
Yes.
Director Cicada?
Yes.
President Thomas?
Yes,
Thank you all very much.
thank you.
Thank you. Way to adapt. Good dance up there.
Okay, moving on to item 5C. This is a discussion and possible direction regarding proposed changes to district capacity fees and base rates related to state mandated fire sprinkler systems. Since Joel isn't here, can we take a 5-minute break and round him up?
Run amok, is that what you said?
Round him up. Round him
I
up.
thought you said run amok.
That too.
Round amok.
She said run amok. So, what do we? Proceed. Again, we're on item 5C. Joel, are you prepared?
Yes.
Thank you.
My apologies for the delay. I'm here to talk about some proposed changes to our policy regarding capacity fees and base rates, which would be considered due to state mandated fire sprinkler requirements. And I'm going to give you a brief overview of the agenda item so we all have an understanding, but it will not take long. I know we've all had a long day. So since 2011, the CBC has required fire sprinklers to be installed in residential homes. And the intent was to provide occupants a little bit of extra time to get out. Not necessarily to put the fire out, but give the occupants a little bit of extra time. The minimum requirement for these fire sprinklers in residential homes was 2 sprinklers at 13 gallons per minute each, total of 26 gallons per minute, in addition to a domestic allowance of 5 gallons per minute. So a total of 31 gallons per minute is the minimum requirement due to state standards. So the issue with our current meters is that the standard size for residential homes is 5/8 inch. The AWWA rating for those is 20 gallons per minute. So if you really look at what the true official rating of the 5/8 inch meter is at 20 gallons per minute, and then you compare that to the minimum requirement of 31 gallons per minute, then you have a discrepancy there. And so that was brought to our attention. We also looked at, well, what are the larger meters ratings? And you can see the 3/4 inch is rated at 35 and the 1 inch is rated at 50 gallons per minute. So the next 2 larger sizes would meet that 31 gallons per minute. So how does this impact developers, contractors, plumbers in our county? Well, what was interesting was as I was researching this to write this agenda item, I called some developers. I talked to Mr. Lemke. I called Denova. We didn't have a chance to talk, but I did call some plumbers and other contractors who I know. And what I found to be very interesting was that while this was presented to staff as an incredibly urgent issue that was causing impacts right now, in Mr. Lemke's case, he has not actually had to purchase a larger meter. He's been able to use 5/8 inch meters in all of his homes in Copperopolis and get those approved by the building department. I found that to be true with the other developers as well, and there may be some who I didn't speak to who have had to buy larger meters, but I also reviewed 200 plus connections that we've sold since 2011. None of those new developers, new homes have had to purchase a larger meter in order to get their fire sprinkler system approved. So I just want the board to understand that while this is an issue in terms of flow capacity and flow rating and there being a discrepancy there, this is not causing an immediate delay or disapproval from the county building department of these sprinkler systems.
Joel, I have a quick question before you leave that topic. Is that because the meters, the 5/8 inch, every brand new 5/8 inch meter is overachieving, is over what it's supposed to be? Or is there a very, very low?
Incompetent? Oh, I thought you were talking about the.
Or is there a
Building department.
low, I mean, when they rate them, do they rate them at the worst possible they could be? Or why is that?
So my understanding from the conversations I had is that the 20 gallons per minute is an extremely conservative rating. And they rate them that way, so there's almost no possibility that they would ever go below that. You have to be able to count on that. Now, due to pressure conditions and the fact that that's conservative, these 5/8 inch are generally, when they do a bucket test, so just imagine there's a sprinkler here, They open that up and they put a bucket or a garbage can below it, and they run that for a minute. And if it actually achieves more than 31 gallons per minute, then it will pass the building department's test. These 5/8-inch meters are achieving what is necessary. In some cases, in other counties, the building department doesn't even do these tests. They allow the builder and the fire sprinkler engineer to do the test and certify it. In some counties, the plumber can do it himself. So it's different by county. In this particular county, the building department does those tests. And there has not been a failure of those 200 connections to my knowledge. Again, I didn't speak to everyone. So I just want the board to be aware of the actual impacts.
I just have a question. There's two issues on these things. One is the permit approval, and the other is what it sounds like you're talking about is an inspection of the as-built. So I think the problem is in the permitting side. You know, yeah, they may work, but if on paper, unless they're doing a preliminary pressure test at the house or at the meter to prove that system works, and I think that's the obstacle that we want to try to jump over, because eventually the county will change their frame of mind and say, wait a second, these aren't rated to the capacity, so we're not going to take any chances on that. And so that's another reason to change this over now and not wait for them to, because we don't want these guys not to get their building permit, even though we know the system will work. If it doesn't rate out well enough, then they won't be able to get their plans approved. You know, I mean, so there's two different things. There's the plan, the calculations for the original permit, and then there's the actual final test.
You're correct.
Yeah.
There are two processes. It is curious to me that the building department is looking at the 20 gallons per minute and then looking at the requirement and still approving the engineered sprinkler systems. There also are many cases where they have to do what's called a low flow fire sprinkler system just to make it pass on paper. And that's an additional cost to the homeowner. There's a lot of plumbers who are very frustrated with that. More sprinklers, more expensive. So you're right. No matter what, whether it works or not, whether it's approved or not, the 20 gallons is not sufficient with the formal rating to meet what the state's requiring. And that's really what the board is looking at today.
How do those plans get through plan check? I mean, if you as a new developer take your plan with the idea that it only requires 35 and you only have 20 and it's right there on the plans, how does that get approved with that 5/8-inch meter?
I can't tell you the process, and we can get some public comment on this later. I can't tell you exactly what the building department does. I just know that we receive a letter from the building department saying that yes, this is approved, or no, this is not approved.
Okay.
So we'd have to talk to the...
We'll get a comment on that later then.
Yeah.
Joel, if I can say something, when they're testing these, they're doing one at a time. If you have 100 houses where all the fire sprinklers came on, would that affect the pressure, or does the main line handle all that?
Oh, there's no doubt that would have an impact, and I think that's the worry, and that's why you...
Whose responsibility would that be if they don't work?
Well, you gotta understand, the purpose of these is not exterior fires. The purpose of these is interior fire. And, you know, all 100 houses are not gonna have an interior fire at the same time.
And the other thing to keep in mind is interior fire, and it's just evacuation. The purpose of this is not to save the house, it's to allow people an evacuation route.
Give them an extra minute.
So we're talking about a short amount of time and for evacuation purposes.
So for these reasons, developers, contractors, plumbers have come and talked to staff and board members about making a policy change to allow new residential construction to purchase a 1-inch meter for the same capacity fee and bi-monthly base rates as a 5/8-inch. And the only additional cost that staff would recommend if the board goes that way is the developer would need to pay the full cost of the 1-inch meter and the installation, which could be $300 to $450 more than the existing 5/8-inch. So compared to a capacity fee for a 1-inch and a bi-monthly base rate, that's a very small cost. And that would allow the meter to meet the state mandated flow requirements, and we wouldn't have any concerns about the formal rating of the meter not meeting the state requirement at that point. So that's really what's before the board. I did want to give you some context. To the north of us, AWA has gone up to a 1-inch meter for all new construction. To To the south, TUD has also done this. And if you look at the trend statewide, this is where water districts are going, is they're upsizing these meters, and they aren't generally passing that cost along to the builders because it's a state mandated requirement. I also want the board to keep in mind that there will be some implications on this. There are concerns from some staff members that if we throw a 1-inch meter in there, that someone's going to take that extra water capacity and plant a large vineyard or orchard or plant a bunch more lawns and things of that nature. Now, whether there's evidence that that would happen or not, I don't think that we have enough data here. I've talked to the north and south. They don't see large increases because of the larger meter, but we need to be thinking about this. And so what we've decided is to recommend a regular water audit on all of these new accounts. And if they use more than the 95th percentile of max day flow on a 3 billion period basis, then we would tell them, you're not just using this for your fire sprinkler, you actually need a bigger meter. You're abusing this courtesy that we're providing to you just for the emergency. So we would be keeping an eye on it to prevent abuse. We're hoping that never happens, but we want to make sure that there's some accountability there on these larger meters.
Just a couple comments. One, I just want to make it clear, this is all only residential. So is there currently a commercial minimum sprinkler requirement?
If there is, I did not research commercial requirements for this presentation. I could come back with that.
It would just be interesting, because I can think of some small, because typically the commercial is generally, we only have a handful of these 1-inch meters out there. They're almost all on commercial, and they serve multiple tenants or something like that. There's a reason they came up with that. They needed that additional capacity. But I see us heading in that direction. I would like to kind of get ahead of that and find out if there's a commercial need for where, for instance, if somebody puts in a small kiosk or a coffee shop or something like that, that would only usually use a 5/8 meter, but might need that 1-inch meter for commercial, that we use the same mentality when we do that, if it's a fire sprinkler building as opposed to the capacity.
I think it's a great question. I think the same logic would apply. I'm not aware either of whether that requirement extends to commercial buildings or not. But
Well, I know that we're all worried about Prop 218 and stuff, but there's a significant distinction on how we build commercial sometimes multifamily.
Yes.
Might happen, so we just need to kind of take a look at that. We don't need to fix it today. I'd like to fix this, but I just want us to have that.
We'll look into that. We did talk to the consultant that did our Prop 218, most recent Prop 218 rate study, and the response was essentially, we need to evaluate this policy for impacts on existing users and whether there would be any cost imposed on other ratepayers other than these new anybody that gets these new 1-inch meters, and we couldn't come up with any. So I don't think there's a Prop 218 issue here.
Okay. All right.
And Joel, would you tell us again how you would break that down? You said something would be at the same cost?
In terms of the 1-inch meters that we would put in the new, so that would be charged at the same rate as the 5/8 inch meter, which is the standard meter for new homes up until this point. And the 1-inch would only be necessary to meet fire sprinkler
Right.
requirements, which we would hope would never ever be used. But there would not be a financial penalty on the capacity fee or on the bi-monthly base rate.
But there's a small difference in the actual purchase of the meter, which is
Correct.
Which
and we
is
will
$300 or
pass that.
$400 that you're talking about. That's the $300 or $400 that you were talking about that would be borne by the developer.
So what, 1-inch meters are just more expensive, we might have to get a
Right.
larger box, and then the plumbing.
You had a slide at the beginning that had information about a 3/4 inch meter that would also meet that requirement. Not pushing for it, but what, do we not use 3/4 meters here?
We do sell a 3/4 inch meter. We talked about this at a staff level, and we determined that it would be simpler to not offer 3/4 or 1-inch, depending either or. If we just standardize to 5/8 or 1-inch, then we could probably save on costs and make it simpler for the customer.
Okay.
So that's staff's recommendation if the board goes this way.
Okay.
In inquiring at the last Aqua meeting about the cost differential between a 5/8 meter and a 1-inch meter, it's $100, give or take a few cents. and the footprint that it sits within is the same, it's just flange to flange, it's the same distance, it'll go in the same box. So $300 extra should cover it, even if some contractor wants to charge more for it. But anyway, good job, thanks.
On the financial considerations, and this is the end, just to show you in terms of if we did sell a 1-inch meter, the difference in capacity is fairly substantial, and then also the difference in the bi-monthly rate is substantial. We also are giving careful thought to our master plans, and we look at people using the 5/8-inch meter for residential. With the 1-inch, if it were actually used, then we'd have to plan that in. So as we update master plans, we'll be looking at this and seeing what impact it will have. But again, generally these fires are just one home at a time, and so we would be able to handle that. Now, if a neighborhood that had mostly new homes, 5, 10, 15 years from now were hit by a wildfire, that would change that equation significantly. And so I think right now we haven't had enough development to have neighborhoods like that, but we will, and we will need to consider that in future master plans.
Any other questions, sir?
So is this going to come back to us, or?
So you have two options today. One is to take no action, and then staff will put this policy on the shelf, and if someone gets denied a fire sprinkler or a building permit due to the fire sprinkler not working, then we could bring it right back because there would actually be a real-life example of this holding up development. Option two is we go ahead and make this change right now, and then we will alleviate the potential of having this problem, and a variety of other things will be alleviated in terms of not having the low flow sprinkler systems and not having the discrepancy between the state mandated flow and what we provide. So it's up to the board. Staff is not making a recommendation today. It's a board direction that we're asking for.
So all you're asking for is board direction? Well, the direction I would like to go is option 2.
And so just to clarify, option 2 still has to come back because it's an ordinance.
Right.
So
That's what I figured, yeah.
And have you guys discussed this at the engineering committee?
A lot, yeah.
Okay, and I figured so. And Russ, what is your take?
Well, probably the thing that stands out most in my mind is that Damon brought us information about what happened over in Amador County, where there was an attitude for a long time that, the 5/8 meters will work. And then suddenly somebody else came into the position to make that decision, and he says, no, that doesn't work at all. And so here's
Somebody else came in, who? I mean,
The
a
fire
developer, a
marshal.
Builder, oh, fire marshal,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, he said that won't work. It says right here that this meter won't do the job. And so we heard testimony from somebody that said they had a subdivision with a number of houses that people, the escrow had closed and people wanted to move in, and the fire marshal wouldn't let them move in, so the developer had to pay, am I right about this? He put them in a motel until the thing could be modified to get up to the higher capacity. But we just want to get ahead of this and I don't know, not even get ahead of it, just be in the same position as the counties north and south of us and everybody else in the state that has addressed this some time ago. This is overdue. And
And I'm going to agree with both the directors on the engineering committee, that this is, as change happens, and this is a statewide change, I think we adapt and develop new policies. I can also see this as a liability situation, potentially. When somebody dies in a house fire in one of these new houses that's just been built, they're going to be looking at pockets, deep pockets everywhere. I mean, and it definitely would come back, at least looking towards CCWD and our policy, and whether or not that contributed in the slightest to the fact that those people could not get out of that house. And I can see this. I think we do need to change and adapt as society is changing and as our rules and state laws are changing. And I think we are behind a little bit in pushing this down. I think we've pushed back on the situation long enough, and I think it is time to move forward with it.
I agree with everything that they said. There's a liability out there, and get ahead of it and get it going.
Well, if you look at, ask the question about why has the county been approving these things, I suspect that there's somebody over at the county that is not oblivious to the fact that it would cost a homeowner an additional $12,000 to $18,000 to go under the current rules and regulations to a 1-inch meter, and it's
And then a lot each month, too.
oh yeah.
Can we call for public comment? And
Oh,
and I'd like to
yeah.
hear I'd like to hear how these, they're getting through plan check. Just, if you have a comment on that, sir.
Don't talk us out of it, though.
I won't.
Yeah, you're probably at this point.
You gotta learn when enough is enough.
Thank you, Joe,
Don't-
for your presentation. I could just say option 2 and let's go sit down, but if you
Right.
want to know about the plan check process.
No more
A
selling.
wise man would.
Basically, Mike Evans, DeNova Homes, good to see you guys again, be in front of you. Basically, we hire a state-certified fire engineer that designs our fire sprinkler system. It goes in as a package with all your other calcs and your paperwork that goes in for your design of your house. It goes to the municipality. Here it's the county. A lot of the other places, it goes directly to the fire marshal, and they have engineers on board that review, do the calculations. We turn in static head pressure for the local water pressure at the closest fire hydrant within the subdivision. It goes through that process and it gets approved. It's up to the developer ourselves as well to implement all those codes and regulations and approvals that are designed and implemented. So when it got down to it, we would put the engineered system in the house, but like in our calcs in our report, it requires, the particular ones we're doing right now on Copper Hills is 31 gallons per minute. So it's up to us to go to you or find a way to get that particular meter and implement it in those houses at that time. So we just push to sticking to the design and the codes.
So the fact that do the plans and drawings that are submitted to the city for the build, or the county for the building to permit, does it include the rating of the valve that's delivering water, our valve to the house, and that it is limited to as far as the manufacturer's designation on it
Yes.
is limited, but and then that's my question is how does
My set of plans particularly call for what they call a T35 meter, which 35 gallons per minute.
Oh, okay,
Minimum.
okay. So
It
it
says
doesn't
it
say
right on the plan.
5/8 or 1-inch then?
Right.
Okay. All right.
So it requires minimum 35 gallons per minute.
And then will you start using a 1-inch going forward if this is the new,
Absolutely.
okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Any questions?
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.
Mr. Lemke, you have anything to add to that?
Don't oversell.
Very awesome too. Let's.
So I think direction is we bring the ordinance back with the revised policy proposal. I think at the same time, we also need to bring back the policy, the rule that we would implement in terms of the monitoring and evaluation of the audits. So we'll have that at the same time. And we should be able to do that at the next meeting, I believe. Did the notice? It's already, the public hearing's already been noticed.
Okay, so any further action needed? You have the direction?
Is this a 218 process?
No.
No, it's not it's not
Don't go there.
Increasing the rate, no.
Yeah, it is. We're changing our rate for a 1-inch meter.
But it's
Yeah,
not,
but it's
there's no impact on any of the other ratepayers is really
Right.
the analysis that we focused on. And I don't know if you can make a comment.
Yeah, you're not changing the rate classifications themselves in any way. So
Okay.
the rates for those, each meter classes are staying.
Where were you 3 months ago?
Right.
Good question.
6 months ago?
Okay, good.
Okay, thank you, Joel, very much.
Good job, Joel.
Okay, we are all the way down to item 6. These are reports. Reports from the Operation Department. Damon?
I appreciate your time. I'll be brief with the operations report for May 2019. Just want to give you another depiction of a service line failure in the Rancho Calaveras area. This is off Baldwin Street. This is a complete failure, and staff was notified. It was bright and early in the morning, so as soon as the property owner came down the driveway, noticed the failure, staff was notified, and we responded quickly. But to kind of add to the fact that, you know, we've been illustrating all these service line failures in the Rancho Calaveras neighborhood, the engineering department is pretty much ready to deploy the capital project associated with service line replacement in that area. So they've been reviewing specifications and updating specifications. So I think that's going to be a great benefit to the district as we move forward and we replace whole sections of service line. This is a couple pictures of our distribution lead in the Rancho area, Randy Scheid, giving training to the Jenny Lynn Fire Department, basically educating some of the less experienced staff on the pressure zones within the area and where the hydrants are of concern are located. So where it's really critical that you don't slam a hydrant, you don't open it too quickly. And this, over time, this training has proven invaluable in keeping our pipes in the ground, and then also providing some assistance to the fire folks so they have a level of confidence of where they need to go to get water supply. And then some interesting pictures here of the West Point regulating reservoir.
What's it called?
I think it's the Peter Martin Reservoir. Actually, I think it might be the Meter Parton Reservoir, right?
I think it should be the Ratterman Reservoir.
The which one?
It should be something besides the West Point Regulator Reservoir.
Yes, you got it.
Rebecca Hitchcock Reservoir.
There you go. So it's important that you see the fact that we do have significant tule growth in the reservoir, and that capacity has been somewhat diminished, greatly diminished. So Michael, myself, and Mr. Martin were out with the Department of Fish and Wildlife in May to really take an assessment of the regulating reservoir, or the Meter Parton Reservoir, and look at ways to clear all the tules and to reestablish the supply that we have within the reservoir. If you all recall, in the late winter, early spring, we experienced some taste and odor. And what the Fish and Wildlife folks that were on site with us noted is that there's a plant, an aquatic plant called Eurasian milfoil that's growing in the reservoir. And I'm going to meet up with some taste and odor experts here in a couple weeks out at the site to review Eurasian milfoil from a taste and odor perspective. And so the sooner we can get in here and clean this sucker out, the better.
We actually circumnavigated the regulator, and the goal there was to make it so unpleasant for Fish and Wildlife that they never want to come back.
Yeah.
Blackberries,
exactly.
Poison Oak, and
yeah, it was a good trek. Here are a couple photographs of a service line repair, and this is something that we've touched on in the past, which this service line is next to conduit, which I'm not sure what's in the conduit, but also there's a black SO cable, which is PG&E power, below the conduit, and then you can kind of make out our service line below that. And so we've been working with our quote-unquote client success manager from PG&E to really compel them to push a project forward where they relocate their electrical infrastructure that happens to be living on top of our water lines.
Yeah.
And you know, it's a great accomplishment for our field staff up on the pass when you think about the Big Trees Village neighborhood, that they tell staff that they've developed a suction hose for the VACON that has no metal parts, so that when they address service line leaks in the area, they're just hitting it with rubber. And that's a concern of mine. I mean, we shouldn't have to be creating a suction pipeline for our VACON. PG&E needs to go in there and relocate their infrastructure. So this is an ongoing correspondence with them. They've done so in the past. I know for a fact they did it in Comanche North Shore. I was involved in that project. So they're a little distracted right now, but I think, hopefully they'll get around the horn and we can get after this project. Here are some pictures of Wilseyville. This is the Wilseyville pump station. We also have some pictures of the West Point Middle Fork diversion pump station, which takes water out of the Middle Fork of the Moke, pumps it up to the treatment facility. Just some housekeeping efforts that were long overdue. That this result, it was a good project because we brought some Valley Springs distribution staff up to provide assistance to the West Point staff, and they actually were able to get this work done along with some removal of some dead fire hydrants that had existed up in the West Point service area. They're all now all gone and removed. Just wanted to highlight the fact that, there was some good cooperation from field staff to get this work done. And then we also have some slides from, this is all of the road grading work effort that's taking place out at the Copper Cove maintenance facility. So if you all recall, the water plant, the wastewater plant, and the maintenance yard all exist on the same property. It's quite a large property. We have a couple different wastewater storage ponds and the tertiary treatment facility out there. And during the atmospheric river storms of February, we experienced a heck of a lot of inflow and infiltration from all of just the topography of the site. And so we gained approximately 8 inches in the storage reservoir almost overnight, and really had some touch and go moments whether or not we were going to spill or have to discharge during the rain event. Subsequently, we turned on the tertiary treatment facility in the middle of the winter and sent the golf course a bunch of water. So I just wanted to show that we are getting after it in terms of reestablishing those roadways, and we are going to send FEMA the bill as part of the work effort associated with the disaster declaration. So this was about 30 hours of our construction crew's time. You can see a big culvert that was failed that they ripped out of there on the right. So they did a great job. This is complete for now, and more to come. And that's it. Any questions?
I just want to make a comment. I went through all of your reports in the back, and I'm very, very pleased. The crew up the hill is doing an excellent job. You had very few situations that needed attention.
Yeah, they do a great job. I just can't say enough good things about our field staff. And when you look at the ops report, there's just an extensive amount of work that all of the different departments go through and complete every month, and it's impressive, and I really appreciate the work that they do.
Well, when you're flushing fire hydrants to the tune of 10,456 gallons, that's quite impressive.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Damon.
Okay. General Manager report, please.
Okay, a couple items. Took a tour recently at TUD, had a tour where they invited a group of folks to tour some of their facilities, share some experiences that they're going through. They're, as some of you probably have heard, they're pursuing a regionalization project. They are sort of cobbled together by a bunch of small water systems, basically, over time. And I think they're basically a combination of, I want to say 19, somewhere in the teens, different TUD, different small water systems that they have absorbed over time, and they've reduced the number of treatment facilities from 19 down to 12 or somewhere along those lines. Their ultimate goal, though, is to have 2 regional water treatment facilities to serve all of those different communities. So it was really interesting to see some of the work that they're doing and build some relationships with some of our neighbors. The new GM over there had some good quality time with the GM down at SSJID. So I think it was a really worthwhile experience. A guy named Dave Egerton, you guys may have heard of. So it was good. Damon mentioned this in the budget workshop this morning, but Damon and Jesse and I went down to the Calaveras Fire Chiefs meet monthly. And it came out of the planning effort that Damon is spearheading on our response to the public safety power shutoff program that PG&E is implementing this year. And that has evolved all the way to the point where we're really looking at the PSPS as an emergency in and of itself. We're drafting, or we're preparing for it as if it is an actual emergency. Because once we started peeling back the layers on that, it really is. It's something that we're gonna have to have a very robust response to, and we need to be prepared for. So Damon's done a tremendous amount of work making sure we're prepared. And part of that was from his experience in Amador, where water agencies regularly met with the fire chiefs, a realization on our part that we need to have a more, a closer relationship with the local fire chiefs. So we reached out to the coordinator of that group where the fire chiefs get together on a monthly basis. We made a short presentation to them this morning, but we hope that that really was just the opening of a closer coordination and the start of a new dialogue.
Excuse me, is the coordinator the one from here in San Andreas?
It was at San Andreas Fire.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So we have been doing, just this week, we actually got to test part of the slurry line. His head's popped up. Naps are over. We've been planning it actually for quite some time, but the weather is what held us back. We needed access to some pretty remote locations, and the roads were in bad shape. So we actually got out there and did some work on it Monday, and coordination with the Utica crew. We verified the probably the riskiest portion of that line, where it runs through a residential neighborhood, is from the Utica ditch down to the vault, where the water line connects to the slurry line. And we didn't see any leaks, so that's good news. It doesn't mean there aren't any small ones necessarily, but we didn't see any major leaks there. But we identified some problems that we need to address in order before we can test the rest of it.
So you put it in where and it came out where?
Well, we have a diversion on the Utica ditch.
Okay.
That goes into the slurry line. It goes into a raw water line that connects to a vault off of Skunk Ranch in the Penn Gulch area.
Okay.
And that vault is where the raw water line connects to the slurry line. And we discovered, though, in this work effort, the air relief valve on that line was completely seized up, which is a big concern because of the pressures associated with the slurry line. And there was some work that was done 10 years ago when it was last tested that rerouted some of the, added some valves, rerouted some of the piping at the vault, and that needs to be revisited. So our guys are actually up there tomorrow excavating and repairing some of that work. But hopefully by next week, we'll have the ability to test it all the way down to San Andreas.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good to hear. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I think by going through that on Monday, and working in coordination with the Utica crew on that, we don't need to necessarily involve them anymore. We have a meter on that line, so we can report to them exactly how much water we're using in this effort, and we have access to any of the sites that we need access to. So it's been a really kind of exciting and informational process, and I think once we come back with some more definitive results of that, we'll have some, we'll present some options to the board. And I think President Thomas has mentioned the idea of a site visit for the board that might be a good idea at this point.
A hike.
Yeah.
What's that?
A hike.
A hike.
Yeah, along.
Yeah.
Downhill.
The whole 26 miles or something, however long it is. Yeah, we can arrange that.
I'd like about 5.
Or we could just visit the part right next to Ironstone and then have some wine tasting. Either way.
Before you go,
yes.
I know you're jumping to another subject, but I remember a comment that was made by one of the Rasmussen brothers that when they tested it last time, that there was one section that looked like a soaker hose. So you should probably call one of them or both of them and find out where that
One of them was with us on Monday. So it's interesting how much, there are a lot of different versions of the slurry line story out there.
Oh, it's all folklore.
There's a lot of folklore, and part of what I think, for me at least, really instigated the push to do the test now is because the story that I always was told on the Highway 4 side was that the slurry line was in such bad shape that
Yeah.
it would have to be replaced before it could be put into service. That's sort of the general, the conventional wisdom over there. And then when I got over here and talked to Chris Zanardi and some of our other field staff who were involved in the test the last time it was done, they said, no, it's in great shape. And that kind of blew my mind. So that we sort of, once we had the discussion about that, we decided we need to get a handle on this. It needs to be tested again, and then we can make a plan for what we can do with bringing it back into service. And so far, the results are pretty good. So we'll see where it goes from there.
Interesting.
Let's see. So speaking of coordination with the Utica crew, we've also we're doing some equipment sharing with them. They've got a Bobcat with a masticator that could be really useful for us, and we have some road grading equipment that they could utilize. So it's kind of a cost savings for both agencies, and it's an opportunity for the field staff from both agencies to work together. So that's something that we're moving forward with. We're also working with Angels Camp city staff on, we have a meeting with them on PSPS preparation. We're trying to reach out to other local agencies just to really make sure they're fully aware of the implications of it and let them know what our preparations for it are, and if there's any opportunities for mutual aid, we're going to explore those with other local agencies too. The county dig once policy, we talked about a little bit at the, well, it was on the agenda at the last board meeting. The update to that is the county has, they've scheduled a meeting here next month to, I think in advance of that meeting, they're going to circulate a revised draft, a revised draft of the policy, and then have a workshop here for the utilities to provide additional input on the draft policy. So we really welcome the opportunity to provide additional comment, and we'll be.
Did we provide additional comments already, or they're going to do a revised draft and then ask for comments?
So they circulated a proposed draft. We provided very detailed comments, and then the direction from the board of supervisors to the public works department was to take the comments into consideration, circulate a revised draft, have a workshop for another opportunity. No, I don't think it's a supervisor workshop. It's just public works meeting with utilities, meeting with the public to provide more feedback, and then all of that happened before it comes back to the board of supervisors. So we're just relieved that they're giving us the opportunity to continue to provide more input on it, and hopefully
what utilities are you anticipating responding to it?
So the ones,
are we encouraging others to get involved that haven't so far? I mean,
we are. We've reached out to a lot of the other local utilities. It's been a big topic of discussion at our quarterly utilities coordination meeting. Some of the telecom companies in the county are submitting comments as well. Murphy Sanitary has been involved, as well as some of the other smaller water districts. So we're trying to make sure that everybody is aware of this and that we all have an opportunity to provide.
what about the City of Angels? I guess it doesn't apply to them, does it?
Right. For the most part, they do their own roads. Let's see. What I got here. Our salary survey should be done this week, and we'll bring that to the board with an update. But that's exciting. Did Joel already leave? That's too bad, because I gave a brief update on this at the last meeting as well, but just to the status of the transition of the customer service manager position is still going very smoothly. Joel is really taking it on enthusiastically. He's already made some changes that I think are improving things over there. We're working on reworking the phone tree and making some other changes to hopefully improve customer service department. But I think Joel deserves a lot of credit for the way he's handled that transition. And then real quick on the federal affairs front, Section 219 is the authorization that we're trying to bring home. Mia is really proving her worth on this one because she was able to get some language in the legislation, the authorizing legislation that allowed for new starts, new projects such as the one that we're proposing. And the Sacramento office of the Army Corps of Engineers has not processed a Section 219 project in a couple of decades. And so they just have no idea how to do it. And Mia has worked with other projects in the Chicago area where they have done these projects recently. And so she orchestrated a call with us and Army Corps staff in Sacramento and Army Corps staff in Chicago so that the Chicago staff could educate the Sacramento staff on how to implement one of these projects, and provided us with some really valuable feedback on how to present something that has the best chance of success, of getting approved.
She is good.
Well, and Bill.
And that's one of the things
Very
we learned.
important to them, you know.
One of the things we learned was, because our initial proposal was a planning effort for treatment plant upgrades and expansion in copper. And one of the really crucial pieces of information that we got from the Chicago office is the Corps really prefers construction, not planning. And we have some projects that we think we can that will fit within that authorization. We're trying to just tailor it as best we can to what the Corps is most likely to approve. Because as I've told the board, if we don't have some money spent on that authorization in the next federal fiscal year, that authorization goes away. So we're doing everything we can to spend some of that money. And then
When will we, any idea when and if we'll know?
We're reworking our proposal right now, but it'll be months still before, I think, probably October at the soonest, but we'll keep the board updated. And then Section 14 also that's Section 219. Section 14 is Emergency Stream Bank Stabilization Program, also through the Army Corps. And we're working with Mia again and the Army Corps on a potential project to provide some flood stabilization and stream bank protection at the Huckleberry Lift Station. And it sounds like it's a project that is well suited for that, for those resources. So a lot of work on that front, and we'll be back at the next board meeting to talk more about Mia's contract.
Do you have anything to report on the conifer discussions?
No, only that I know our staff has been working with Conifer on cell tower locations. I haven't been directly involved with it. I don't know if you know anything more about it.
So ops staff and some engineering folks sat down with Conifer, had a meeting, and there are some additional sites they would like to review. So the next schedule on the docket is to go out and do some site surveys and then determine from our side of the house what the benefit or the need is for us. So that's the next step, but we're moving forward in communication with them.
We've been in contact with them or discussion for quite a while, haven't we?
That's what I understand.
Yeah.
And it's Michael and my understanding that there's been fits and starts associated with that. So the mandate is duly noted and we're moving forward with the communication.
And this is also for those fire cameras.
That's correct. Yep.
That to me is a high priority.
Yep.
That we should
Yep,
follow
absolutely.
up on and make sure that it's moving along to
Yep.
at least do that.
Yep, absolutely.
And one last late-breaking update before Damon goes away for President Thomas. The manhole in Saddle Creek is now 5 inches lower than it was this morning.
Good.
So we've got a lot of other activities, policy revisions, the termination policy. We haven't forgotten about it. We are working on that. we prioritized the fire sprinkler policy revision for this meeting, but we are still working on the termination policy, as well as other policy and fee updates as well. So we've got a lot on our plates at this point.
You know, I had suggested to Joel not too long ago with that termination of service to make sure that we have some kind of language, so if they somehow get access water to a parcel, there's some kind of fees and fines involved. I don't know if I talked about that in the finance meetings, but we want to make sure if somebody disconnects and now we see a hose going from one property to the other,
Right.
we have an issue, right?
Yeah, and I think that one will come back to
it's
the
in
finance
there.
committee before it comes to the board, probably.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to have to ask for some indulgence here. I have to make a call before 3 o'clock. I know that there are board reports and we have a closed session, but I'm going to have to leave here for until the closed session. Is that all right?
Oh,
Can you take over?
yeah. Oh, certainly.
Okay.
Okay, board reports?
We didn't have an IRWM meeting last month either. It was canceled. I'm not certain why. However, I did participate in a conference call. I'm on the Disadvantaged Community Involvement Committee for the Mountain County's funding area. And over the last year or so, there's been some disagreement on how to spend the implementation portion for the funding region, which was it was $13 million for the Mountain County's funding region. And then after they take the 1.3 out for the plan, there's roughly, let's say, 10 million. And so for implementation, DWR requires that the group decide how they want to spend that money. So there's been some disagreement. All the IRWMs agreed but one. But just the other day, we got a letter that said they would agree with the splitting the 10 million, 9 ways. Not a whole heck of a lot, but at least there's an agreement, and we were having a big problem getting that to be agreed upon. So that's good news. So that should move forward. There's a conference call for that on the 20th, which I will be out of town, and our next regular meeting is the 19th, so I'll talk with Russ to see if he wants to go, because I will be out of town. And on the 20th conference call, I will try and make that, but it just depends on where I'm at. I'll be on vacation. That's where we are with IRWM.
I just want to make a comment that I think we need to do some proactive press release, something in regards to the PG&E shutoffs, what we're doing. I think it's certainly I think it was last week, it hit the social media buzz, and people are still surprised about it, but I think we need to be out there doing what we can to let people know the measures that we're taking and where we are in the process. And so they at least have some assurance, because I still think that there's a lot of, I'll bet you 20% of folks that live in Calvert County actually know that PG&E is going to potentially shut power off for as much as a week in some cases. And I just want to make sure that everyone, when it does happen, that they realize that we've taken whatever measures we've taken. I don't know that our process is complete in that, but I think we need to let people know what we're doing and what our time frame is to get up to speed, to make sure that in that event we'll have generators out there to make sure they have water. So
we will get on that, and I think another piece of that is just trying to spread the information as much as we can and let the public know not only what we're doing, but what the impact could be on them. And especially in some cases, there's a lot of private septic tanks with pumps and private wells with pumps that are not within our system.
There's so many things that
they're not within our system, but we'll probably be the first people that they call when stuff starts backing up on them. And we just want to try to head that off to the extent that we can and let people really, hopefully people can prepare for that.
even maybe, with, county public works needs to be doing this as well. You know, they need to let people know what's gonna happen. I mean, you know, that their wells are gonna shut off, that they better have a several day supply of water.
Yeah,
You know?
maybe a joint town hall, Public Works and CCWD, where we
Well, that's, I
invite the public to
encourage
talk
that,
about
but
it.
I think that we've got, our social media presence is superior to the counties, or, I mean, they have an emergency alert, set up and that sort of thing, but, and maybe, when we get a notice from PG&E, I'd like us to be prepared to put a notice out to, on our website and to anybody, into our social media pages.
Into our Facebook page. And,
Yeah, the billing thing, that's great also, but when it actually, they open the bill, they see that, I don't know how PG&E is notifying everybody.
They've been doing a lot of advertising. They've taken out full
Yeah,
page
they're-
ads in newspapers.
Right.
They've-
We talked about this at our last meeting.
A lot of flyers,
but
but-
that's, that was exactly what I was saying, is that I know there's flyers in their PG&E bills and full page ads, but you're right, most people I talk to know nothing about it and are gonna be surprised.
I
a
just
lot of
think
a
that-
lot of people just ignore that
No,
stuff.
I just think
Yeah.
the little ranch I'm working on right now, they've got probably, I don't know, they've got ostriches, they've got pigs and goats. Matter of fact, I plowed the goat pen open yesterday with my telehandler. But, I mean, what happens to them if they don't, because they're on a well? I mean,
No, it's
they
gonna be.
don't have water, they're
a lot-
not anywhere near enough water for those
Yeah.
animals.
Well, not only that, there's
I
businesses.
haven't talked to them yet about it.
There's
but I
businesses in this town, businesses are gonna shut down, stores aren't gonna be open, gas stations aren't gonna be open. You're not
Gas
gonna be able to
stations
get-
won't be open, yeah.
You won't be able to get gas for your generator that you just bought. I mean, in preparation for this, I just got a generator delivered to my house last week, and check, I got one thing, I need to go get a gas can to make sure I have enough gas to run it for a week. But there's all different kinds of things, and that town hall idea would be fantastic.
So that is noted, and we will get that out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Camera meeting next week, right here in this room at 2:30 on Wednesday. The Mountain Counties is still having their tour on the 27th up in Auburn, and a reception the night before. And just to save the date, I did meet with Mountain Counties Water Resource Association is having a reception here in our county, be at Murphy's Hotel on Thursday, November 14th. Just save the date. Everyone's invited, and there's going to be a tour associated with that for a limited amount of people. But certainly everyone here would be welcome. That tour is going to be on Thursday, starting about noon that same day. I'm sorry? Yeah. Oh, of course, David. Yes. We'd need legal counsel on the bus.
and what are we touring? What are we touring?
We're getting to the bottom of that. Oh, probably McKay's.
Scott, I put on there, save the date, something about Stanislaus River projects. Is that part of the Mountain Counties you're talking about?
We'll be touring the Stanislaus River.
Okay, so that's on the 14th.
Stanislaus or the Stanislaw, whatever.
Stanislaw.
We'll be on that river system.
But I have that for the 14th. Is that the invitation you're talking about?
The reception is that
Okay,
night, and the
reception.
tour is earlier in the day.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Oh, okay. Back to the fire. Apparently at the Aqua Convention, there was something from Region 3 about infrastructure in relationship to a fire.
We hosted a plenary session on efforts that different agencies are taking to prepare for wildfire and reduce risk. Shannon Catula from South Tahoe PUD is on the Region 3 board,
Just the
presented.
different agencies and what they were doing.
And Forest Service. Barney Gant from Forest Service also presented. So it was a very good presentation.
Well, I'm sorry I missed that, yeah.
Yeah, and there's also the Headwaters Committee within Aqua that Dave Egerton formerly was the head of and formed that committee, is now headed by Gene Mancebo at Amador.
Oh,
And so
okay.
we met for the first time in quite some time at the Aqua conference, and there's already a follow-up meeting scheduled and some work efforts that have come out of that.
So, I'd like to see something, or, I don't know, was that recorded, that session with,
I don't think it was recorded, no.
I was at both of those. They were back to back.
I could probably get the presentation materials for you if you'd like.
yeah, I'd just be interested in doing. Okay, so, the dig once is now gone back to the Public Works?
Back
or
to staff, yeah.
probably back to staff, so
Yeah.
it's in a holding pattern.
They're working on revisions and they'll circulate a new draft.
Okay, so we don't get excited about it. On Saturday, I attended the Blue Lake Springs, who are they, the shareholders?
The Mutual Water Company,
well,
the annual
yeah.
shareholders meeting.
Yeah, and that was all of these people are coming and they only come to their property maybe 1 week during the year, and everything is brand new about Blue Lake Springs, and they're happy about their water, so that's good. Their wells are revitalizing or filling up or whatever, so that's good for them. And that's it.
You want to read the closed session?
Okay, next board meetings, Wednesday, June the 26th, that'll be when we adopt our budget. And then the next meeting is July the 10th, and I know that you had sent out a memo. Is everybody in? Keep it, okay. All right, so the meeting after that will be July 10th. Okay, going into closed session. Conference with legal counsel, existing litigation.
Shall we recess until Russ comes back in? and then
Well,
go
we
to closed
will,
session?
but we can go adjourn into closed session.
Do you want to stay in here? Just turn off the recording devices.
9B, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, and that's it. Okay.
So the first one is the PG&E settlement that we had a closed session.
Do you have the video?
Oh, sorry.